Please rise for the invocation by Reverend Antonio Logan, Friendship Baptist Church.
Let us bow our heads. Oh God, we thank you, first of all, just for being God all by yourself, for being omnipotent, you're all powerful, and you are sovereign. Thank you for the city of Hickory. Thank you for the mayor, councilman, and all the council persons. Thank you for being our God, who have led them down through the years in the past, who have opened doors and things would get better, the people's lives were enhanced and begin to grow even in diverse ways. Now, Lord, we pray for tonight that as they come together, I pray for uniting of the minds, the hearts, that you will grant them the wisdom to make the decisions, that after it's made, the people will be better. They shall be more economic. They shall have more food, and whatever it needs, the place shall be a better place, and you shall be glorified in all that they say and do. Now we turn this meeting into your hands, and we thank you in advance for what is going to emanate through this meeting. It's our prayers in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we're going to start with a special presentation by Mark Benz, the new CEO at Frye Regional Medical Center.
Mayor, council members, thank you. It's a great pleasure being here with you this evening. On February 3rd, Frye Regional Medical Center announced that it would be seeking a strategic partner. And let me give you a little bit of history on that. Healthcare is evolving very quickly these days, and we're evolving from sending a bill to an insurance company to population health management. What that means is that we will be responsible for serving residents of a community. And the purpose is not to treat them in the hospital, it's to provide health and wellness, prevention, intervention services, keep people healthy and keep them away from the hospital. So that's a fundamental shift that's profound throughout the United States at this time. In order to do that, healthcare systems have to provide much more comprehensive, regionalized care, meaning all services. Let me give you an example of what Tenet Health has been doing around the country, which is the parent company of Frye Regional Medical Center. In other marketplaces where we need to build and grow a regional comprehensive system of care, instead of trying to develop those ourselves, we have sought out strategic partnerships and relationships with other healthcare providers in our community. In Birmingham, Alabama, we own a freestanding hospital there, and we couldn't survive as a freestanding hospital. Although it's very financially lucrative, in preparing ourselves for population health management, we needed to be a regionalized system of care. We went to our fellow hospitals in the community, and now Tenet has gone from one hospital to being the majority owner of a 5-hospital system. So essentially our competition, which is the Baptist healthcare system in Birmingham, we strategically came together. That's best for the residents in the community. We stop competition, we reduce expenses, and we provide more comprehensive services throughout the entire community. So that's kind of the model that we're looking for. Just recently in Tucson, Arizona, same thing. We announced we were looking for a strategic partner. We entered into a partnership with 3 Catholic hospitals. Now we're 4 hospitals strong in a joint venture. And for your purposes, remaining a paying entity in the community, which I'm sure you may be interested in that topic. So that's the strategy. Again, we announced it February 3rd. Our first option is to partner with other providers in the area for the reasons I just stated, to provide those services, reduce expenses, and have much greater resources, which is better for the community. Secondly, some of those partners are non-tax-paying partners. So overnight, it has helped in the economic development of the community by them becoming a real estate and sales tax, as well as when we go in, we do an equity partnership. So we then infuse hundreds of millions of dollars into that community for the majority interest of those healthcare entities. That's strategy one. Strategy two, if that's not appropriate for the community and we cannot gain that partnership, then we look for an academic healthcare system that is local to the state and that is interested in coming in and sharing resources with us. And when I say a partnership, that means that we just don't pay them a management fee for the pleasure of having them come put their name on our building. They come and become the minority interest owner in our hospital, thus infusing perhaps hundreds of millions of dollars so that we can reinvest that back into the capital for high technology or for developing what we call higher acuity healthcare services that we can provide in our community versus what we're sending out now to other places because we don't provide those services. I can tell you that when we made this announcement, we did an inquiry to every academic system in the state of North Carolina and got a resounding response from them. They would be interested in having the discussion with our company to come in and partner with us at Frye. So that's the second option that we have. The third option, and again, if we partnered with an academic healthcare system, we would remain the majority equity owner of the system, so our tax status would not change. Third option is if an academic healthcare system wanted to come in and they had great interest and made a commitment to building and growing a comprehensive regional system of care in the Hickory area, and they didn't want Tenet as a partner, and they convinced us through perhaps a offer that couldn't be turned down, then Tenet would consider exiting its ownership in the marketplace. And that's very briefly a description of the process that we're currently working through. And do you have any questions at this time?
Yeah, I have a couple. Thank you for coming, by the way.
My pleasure.
And I really appreciate you speaking to the tax-paying aspect because that's important to us.
Absolutely.
I looked up this afternoon, and you probably know, $250,000 is the check that you paid for the hospital alone. And property taxes, that's county and city for the last tax year, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's a very low number that you just quoted.
Okay.
I may be wrong. I may have my figures sales tax and
this was just property tax.
Okay.
This was just property tax. So obviously, we were concerned if there was a nonprofit that ended up with ownership that it would impact our citizens in a negative way, because we have to, of course, continue to provide city services to the facility.
Understand.
And y'all have been a great, this is not about being angry with Tenet. Y'all have been a great community partner. But then I went further and learned that Tenet doesn't even own the hospital. It's leased through healthcare properties.
Through a REIT, that is
through a
correct.
REIT. And so any kind of transaction, would you expect that REIT to stay in place?
That being a proprietary company, what that means is they can't give me a lot of detail, being in operations on site. And that goes into, we can't be seen as potentially violating FTC with stock price. So a lot of that information is kept at our home office in Dallas, which I am not privy to. So I can't answer that question whether the REIT would continue to own the property or whether, in fact, that property would be sold to perhaps someone else.
Yeah. Well, would you be willing to convey to your leadership that let's see how to tactfully put this without, but it's important for us to be supportive of Tenant and of Frye, and to recognize the 100 years that Frye Regional Medical Center served our population. But it's also our interest as a local government in collecting property taxes is something that I think needs to be communicated.
I absolutely understand, and
Right.
I will reiterate that message to our corporate office.
Very good. Very good.
And please, the mayor has already spoken to me about this, as well as Mr. Berry.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
But that wasn't on the record. Now
That may be why he came, so the rest of us wouldn't be contacting him.
Please contact me at any time. I'm available to you.
Yeah.
Well, now that you're a Hickory resident, you have an interest in it also.
Absolutely, and I made my decision. I found, coming here, finding Hickory, finding such an outstanding medical staff that I've only seen comparable in large academic healthcare systems. So very surprised by the level of quality experience of the medical staff. The employees are extremely dedicated, talking to the board, the medical staff, to key stakeholders. That's what drew me to Hickory. And my decision was to come to Frye Regional Medical Center, whether it was owned by Tenant or someone else.
Thank you very much, Mark. I will tell you, having had a chance to talk with him, Mark would be an excellent ambassador for the chamber, or for the city of Hickory, or Boost Hickory, or any other thing that we'd like to have him help us sell. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And it's that time of year again that we have, once again, we have recognition for our budget process. And how many consecutive years is this? 20 years. And how many consecutive years have we gotten recognition for our financial reporting, financial statements? 19. Okay, I'm going to make this presentation. I don't know.
Karen Hurley.
I was going to say, Mr. Wood, you want to receive this, or the people that actually did the work? I'm gabbing a little. But he's always here to carry the credit. Okay, well, let's just stand right here. Well, it'll make a better picture of it. I'm not sorry I got it hit up with the high-tech camera she's got. Whereas the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States has bestowed upon the City of Hickory's budget office the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for, yes, the 20th consecutive year. Whereas this award is the highest form of recognition in governmental budgeting, representing a significant achievement by the city and reflecting the commitment of the City Council and staff to the highest principles of governmental budgeting. Whereas in order to receive this award, the Budget Office satisfied nationally recognized guidelines that are designed to assess how well a city's budget serves as a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. Now therefore be it resolved that the Hickory City Council hereby recognizes and honors the budget office staff upon receipt of the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the 20th consecutive year. Any persons requesting to be heard? Motion to approve the minutes of March 3rd.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion by Seaver, second by Patton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. That's unanimous and all members are present. Motion to reaffirm and ratify on second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Patton, second by Guess. Zagaroli. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Anything to be removed from the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd ask that item N be removed and would further move approval of consent agenda items with the exception of N.
Second.
Motion by Lael, second by Seaver. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Item N is the water supply master plan as developed by the Catawba Water Management Group. I got to looking at this document. Y'all remember, of course, the drought back I think in 07. Remember the formation of this group. We remember the low inflow protocols. We remember the battle that we waged against for our water to keep it in the Catawba Basin. And I thought it'd be appropriate maybe if we get a presentation on this master plan. My concern is it's a very extensive and thorough master plan. Covers a pretty long horizon, and it's my opinion that if we're going to endorse the plan, we kind of need to know how it might affect us down the road. And I just glanced at it. I know Kevin Greer is vice chair of that group, and I know he does a great job representing us. So I don't think there's anything in there that's going to be too shocking. But I'd move that we hold that out for a departmental report at some date in the future.
I'll second that.
Motion by Lael, second by Patton.
Does this hold anything up with it being on the agenda for tonight? Does it affect anything?
No, you've got a number of local governments that are all part of this, and they're all kind of all over the process in terms of their resolutions of support. And as Councilman Lidwell said, this is the whole Catawba River Basin is huge. And they've actually done a pretty good job of trying to, work as a body managing this resource. But I think it's a great comment. It'd be a good discussion for y'all to have. But no, there's no immediate time frame. Something we could do at your next meeting.
As long as it doesn't, there's no time frame involved, then I'd be okay with it.
So that's an motion to withdraw it from the consent agenda and place it on the next council agenda for discussion under departmental reports.
Yeah, that's fine. I would suggest to staff that if it can't be done at the next meeting, a subsequent meeting,
sure.
Depending on. But yes.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Mr. Burry, as part of that process, it might be good to see if we can get any sense of where the legislature stands as far as the laws that protected against removal of water from our basin, and the DENR, the Department of Energy and Natural Resources, Department of Environment and Natural Resources,
right.
yeah. And just make sure that, over the years there have been little attempts to make inroads at getting this opened back up to transfer water, and of course a number of us have spoken up vigorously each time. We We don't want to go through, you guys don't want to go through that process again. But if we could get that too, I think it'd be good. New business, Mr. Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll call on Mr. Kevin Greer, Assistant Public Services Director with the city. He's going to make a presentation that actually has 4 components to it. This is all related to a consulting contract with Gavel Dorn and the seeking some state revolving loan funds to pay for it, and then also the budget amendments that would go with it. So Mr. Greer will present that to council. Then I would ask you to take action as you see fit on A, B, C, and D, as we'll need direction and approval to move forward with each of those. Mr. Greer.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone, good evening. And thank you for allowing me to speak tonight regarding our Central Business District Infrastructure Replacement Rehab Project. It took me a lot to practice that one. Wow. It's exciting. So this is one of those projects that's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of project. In one way, thank goodness, but in another way, because it's really, it's not often that you get to go really into the heart of downtown and look at what it is, what it means, and what needs to happen to ensure that growth as we move forward. So what we've done really over the last 18 months is we've kind of done that. We've looked at downtown and we've said, okay, what needs to happen waterline-wise, what needs to happen with the sewer, and what needs to happen with the storm drainage. And we've looked at all those things. Really, it has been about 18 months that we've looked over that. So the first takeaway was when we looked at the water lines, because of dirty water calls, of course, with downtown, and that's directly related to cast iron pipes. That's what that, and that's just aged infrastructure. It was great at the time, and now it, of course, there's better products that are out there. The other thing is increased flow demands. So, of course, when that happens, you get the discolored water. So that's really what led us to the project of, okay, all the water lines really need to be replaced downtown. The second thing we kind of developed was, okay, then what about the sewer and what about the storm drainage? So we engaged in a project with Gavel Dorn to look at that and just say, what does it look like? What do we need to do with downtown to make it look nice and to make it work for what we want as a downtown? So really that developed into the 3 things that we have before you. Well, I guess there's 4 things that we have before you for council consideration. One is a consulting contract with Gavel Dorn. And we request, of course, council approval of the contract to complete design of the sewer and the storm drainage and to administer the contract. So there's a lot of this that's really hands-on. You got to make a decision in the field as you uncover this thing. Kind of work that happens anytime you're working in this kind of congested area. The other thing is, I was recently at a seminar, and the State Revolving Fund has available money for clean water, which it's kind of an ironic name, but it's actually sewer is clean water when it comes to their fund, and storm drainage. And right now they're projecting that interest rate to be 1.6%. So we thought, hey, it's a great time for us to apply for some of that money. So the second thing we're asking council action on, of course, is the approval to apply, and then the resolution that's required to go along with that approval, just designating who our person is as the authorized representative. The total project we estimate is around $3 million for the project itself. What we're going to apply for from the State Revolving Fund is $2 million, and the reason for the disparity there is because drinking water doesn't accept applications till September. Clean water, the wastewater side, and stormwater accept applications March 31st. So those are, of course, that's sooner. Excuse me. Now this is what we call, we really don't have this is our defined central business district, okay? So there's nothing magic about what we defined as our area other than if you look at just the pure density of lines that are in that area plus buildings or customers for us that are in that area. So if you look, really, it's Main Avenue at Union Square to the south to the bottom of the projector there. And then the top is 2nd Avenue. And then to the left of the page, or the easternmost boundary, would be 3rd Street, and the westernmost boundary, or I guess that would be, sorry, I got that backwards, would be 2nd Street. So really it's from Union Square to Hickory Daily Record Building, and then from the community theater over to the bank. So it's really that area. And you can see on the map the yellow is storm drainage that exists, the green is sewer that exists, and the blue is water that exists. So you can tell it's really congested in that area. I'm going to take this in pieces, so I'm going to talk about the water first. The water system, that total area down there, we've got almost 3,500 feet of water line in that small of an area. So that's a lot of water in that area. When you look at just Trade Alley by itself, there are 40 meters that are in Trade Alley. So this whole area, we're talking about 65 water meters really in this whole area that are down there. It's all 6 and 8 inch water lines, or I'm sorry, 6 inch water lines, and they're cast iron. So of course they're due for upgrade. Next couple of slides really just kind of show you what we found. So this is, if you look, about 3 weeks ago, we worked on a water line just below the of course, Old City Hall, but the community theater in that area. This is the pipe that we uncovered. So you can see on the inside, that rough area, we've lost about 20% of the capacity of that pipe from just natural inside, and it's rust is what that is. So it's the inside of those pipes just rust. The other really unique thing was, if you can make that out, 1904 was stamped on that piece of pipe. So I think it's paid its due. The sewer is a little bit different. Of course, downtown there's a lot of 6 and 8 inch lines that are down there, and you can tell that it was built as any traditional turn of the century downtown was. It was a manhole stopped at this point, and they decided we're going to build another building, so they extended a little bit of pipe. And then, okay, we're going to build another building, so they extended another little bit of pipe. So what we've ended up with is a system that works, but it's also a system that has inflow problems with some rainwater that gets in. It also has problems with just, there's a lot of congestion in that area. So there's a lot of people that are flushing and using water in Union Square area, and then also when you get over on First, when you got the movie theater and a couple of restaurants now. So there's a lot of demand on that system. Storm drainage is another animal that we uncovered as we were in there. We started looking, and we decided that we know we get some inflow and infiltration from downtown. What that means is we know some of the what we thought were sewer taps on the sewer system in Trade Alley are actually roof chains that are connected to the sewer line. We discovered that through smoke testing. So when we were smoke testing downtown, of course, everything lit up with smoke. But then also we videoed that entire system, so we could see all the cracks, we could see all the nooks and crannies, we could see all the pipes that came in and clearly were stormwater or clearly were sewer. So we really did a good evaluation of that whole area to decide what needed to happen sewer-wise and then what needed to happen with the storm drainage system. Really, the storm drainage system, there's an addition in Trade Alley of a storm drain with a couple of spots to get water off the sewer line and get it into the storm drainage. And then there's some recommendations the engineer made. There's a red line here you see now that actually goes under the buildings in the area of Whalen Plaster's architect, the office that's there. You can see there's a section. The engineer is actually making a recommendation that we move it uphill some and go in the open area. There's a parking lot between Hickory Springs and that next building. Kind of shoot that gap and come in with a storm drain and get it around that. Now, we have not talked to Hickory Springs, so this is all still very preliminary in the evaluation stage, so we still would have to do that. But that's a recommendation they're making for some storm drainage improvements. And this is what we really wanted to share with everybody also. If you look at the hatch pattern, that really is the cuts. So when we start talking about tearing up downtown, it's not that you're tearing up a small area. If you look at 2nd Street there, basically from 2nd Avenue to Main Avenue, 2nd Street gets tore up. You know, that's a series of maybe 3 different trenches, but basically the whole area gets tore up. Trade Alley, that entire area gets tore up. Basically, it goes down to a dirt street and then comes back only because the water, the sewer, and the storm drainage all have to go back in Trade Alley. First Avenue, there's quite a bit of that happens right in the middle of the block, and then you can see some of the work that's up here. Really, that's that proposed storm drainage that we're looking at if we do something with the storm drainage there. So we wanted to show you that because we want to plan for what can happen in a logical way versus just trying to do this piecemeal and one thing at a time. We would rather just tear everything up at one time and then move forward. So really then we have 2 things that I wanted to bring before you. The first of all is a request of council approval for a design services and a construction administration contract with Gavel Dorn in the amount of $268,000. That roughly breaks out to about $50,000 in design, and the rest is construction admin. And that's mainly because really with that area that's getting tore up, it has to be in the field making a decision what happens if this comes up. So the first one we're asking for, of course, is the request for council approval of the design services contract with Gavel Dorn in the amount of $268,000. The second thing that we're asking for in this is the request for council approval to apply to the state revolving loan fund for low interest loan for replacement and rehab monies. So what that'll do is let us borrow the money and then pay it back at low interest. 1.6% now is what they're projecting for a 20-year period. So just financially that helps us. And then finally, the C and D that are in there, of course, are the budget ordinance amendment for the money, and then the capital ordinance amendment that are in there for the money. So that's the 4 things that we would request council take action on. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
What is the time frame of start to finish?
Start to finish, it's about a 10-month project if it were to start and finish. The way we're looking at it is we really have a tight window for the trade alley and those areas that are closer to Union Square. We have to get past New Year's, in essence, and we have to get before they start swinging under the sails. So we've got about a 3 or 4 month window to get that part done, we think. That way we're impacting the least amount downtown in that area, and then we can be working on the other streets as we're coming up to that in other times.
So these are all open cuts, and I don't understand. Are you talking about cutting once, excavating? Is everything going in the same trench?
Most of it will be located right beside the existing, because we have to keep part of this in service. Whatever we don't keep in service, we'll have to run temporary lines on top of the ground to connect to. So that still has to be kind of worked out with the design.
Right. Okay.
That's part of what's in Gavel Dorn's contract.
But we're not talking about 3 separate forays. In other words, you're going to cut, open that trench, put in sewer, water, and then cover back up, get some stone back.
Well, there's separations that you have to maintain, so it probably will be 1 cut is for water, 1 cut is for sewer,
okay,
and then whatever storm drainage. Now, when this project actually counts to patch back, because we're not really sure what downtown can evolve to. So it counts to patch back, but like in 2nd Avenue, that'll end up being a full width pave basically over those, to where we got 1 big patch, not 2 individual trenches running up the road.
So you're not anticipating at this time needing to close 2nd Street Northwest?
Well, that's the advantage of doing 1 line at a time, is that we'll be able to have 1 lane of traffic, and the contractor will be responsible for all traffic control, but he should be able to maintain 1 lane the whole time.
Yeah, okay.
Kevin, are we going to have to secure any easements, or is this going to be basically on things we already have?
All of this is in road rights of way, with the exception of the 1 potential storm drainage improvement here.
Okay.
That would be an easement or some agreement with Hickory Springs or whoever to get that part worked out.
Are we going to redirect any, are we going to impact any other areas, like, going towards Horsford Creek or
Well, it'll actually, as far as what's going to be in there, it'll improve it, because we'll take water that we're getting in the sewer system now that shouldn't be in the sewer system, we'll take it off. Right. So we'll gain some capacity there, and we'll be improving the storm drainage to where it'll actually flow better versus just a...
You might want to touch on that storage area that up there at the top, because that speaks directly to what Councilman Meisner is talking about.
Okay, so what we've got shown here that I'm kind of blocking around with the red laser is when we looked at what needed to happen for that very thing to keep really downtown from flooding out the lower end with new water coming in, because we're taking it off the sewer line. So what we looked at was putting some off-stream storage. So when we come through with the storm drain, what we would do is actually build a little area, and you've seen some of them in Honda's parking lot's a good one, where they have actually that storage that's on site. Have a little area where we could have that water come in to kind of shave the peak is what it would do, and then let it feed back into the system as the system goes back down. Now, all that still needs to be worked through with the Gavel Dorn contract as far as what size, where it actually goes. This is our schematic. That's a back parking lot. This is our schematic. It may actually be a better spot for it depending on when the engineer gets into it, what he really decides as far as where the most bang for the buck would be.
Out of all the areas that the city maintains, is this the oldest and in the worst condition?
Downtown actually is not in that bad of a condition. I mean, downtown, as far as the infrastructure goes, is not that bad. It's just really, it's water-wise, it's undersized for what we think needs to be there, as well as just it's out of age. Age is the more important thing. The sewer system is a different story. The sewer system it's bad. There's a lot of cracks. It's terracotta pipe, so it's old material. What we're kind of facing here is we've outlived the useful life of the material that's in there. You're talking 100-year-old plus material here, and it just wasn't intended to be that long. So to classify it as the worst, I don't know that I would classify it as the worst. Maybe the worst with all of those in one area, yeah, probably so, because it probably is the oldest part of the system that we have.
Are there other areas in the city that you've determined that may need something similar to this?
Annually, we look at projects. If you remember back 3 or 4 years ago, we did a section of 20-inch line over down from the water plant that we replaced on 15th, coming down 15th and crossing the creek. So that was part of it. Cripple Creek sewer line was 3 or 4 years before that. So what we've done with, again, with council endorsement is we've actually rolled these type replacement rehab projects into our budget. That's a big, that's a $13 trillion number that's hanging out there for the infrastructure in the United States over the next 20 years to just replace what you have. We've been pretty methodical about, we generate about $500,000 a year or so that we put in this type of stuff to try to keep us from having some of those. Now, we're still going to have emergencies, but having those catastrophes.
I guess really what I'm asking, is there a priority list that lists which areas of town are priority for each of those systems?
It's really not areas of town. It's sections of lines. So if you look like the 20-inch line that we replaced a couple of years ago, we replaced 3,600 feet of it. That was the worst 3,600 feet of that 3 miles of 20-inch water line. So we look at the areas that we have trends of issues. So either dirty water calls or breaks or pressure issues. So we look at those kinds of things. On the sewer side, we look at, do we have overflows? Do we have line breakages? We video our system in certain areas, and we start thinking, okay, it's getting the age or it's getting the types of numbers of calls that we need to look at it. So we try to evaluate those things just as they come up. We don't have a bad area per se. It's just sections that we have that we really work on, that we concentrate on. And yes, we do have that list.
So you got priority.
Yes, sir.
So one of the things is, Mr. Greer mentioned $13 trillion is being kicked around in the national media about the aging infrastructure of America, and it's kind of a crisis. As we look at the city, I'm really proud of the staff and of the city council over really a long period of time of setting rates and establishing plans to constantly maintain your infrastructure. And you all have been doing it. You're just so used to doing it, you don't realize that that's what you're doing every year as you appropriate funds in the budget, as you set the rates for your water and sewer system. You're incorporating into that this good practice of annually evaluating everything and replacing the system as it evolves and goes along. So, we're never where we'd want to be with everything being in pristine shape, but we're in really great shape, especially compared to the rest of the country from the things I read in maintaining our infrastructure. And I'm really proud of Kevin, Chuck, that whole crew, those teams of folks that are constantly bringing these things to my attention. Warrens, we budget for them, we bring them to y'all, and we keep maintaining our system. So appreciate the great work they do on that.
Council will need to consider each of these individually, B1A, B, C, and D.
I would move approval for the agreement of consulting services with Gavel Dorn.
Second.
Motion by Lael, second by Patton. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Well, I'll move approval of the application for state revolving loan fund.
I'll second.
Motion by Seaver, second by Lael. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
I move approval of the budget ordinance amendment number 15.
Second.
Motion by Patton, second by Meisner. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Move approval of the capital project ordinance number 2.
Second.
Motion by Meisner, second by Seaver. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Good job, Mr. Greer.
Next department report, I'll ask the city's Parks and Recreation Director, Mr. Mac McLeod, to come to the podium. You all will recall that at your January 6th meeting, you asked staff to develop a priority use agreement formalizing the partnership with the Greater Hickory Tennis Association for improvements and renovations to the tennis complex. And Mr. McLeod is here before you tonight to bring that to you.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone, as Mr. Berry said, before you tonight, for your consideration is a priority use agreement with the Greater Hickory Tennis Association for tennis complex improvements at Hickory City Park. And before I get in that, just a brief as to what is a priority use agreement. Basically, that priority use agreement will give the Greater Hickory Tennis Association priority use of the tennis courts over any other non-City of Hickory group or program going on, similar to what we have with the Catawba Valley Youth Soccer Association. They have priority use based on our public-private partnership on the lights, so they have priority use of those fields. The City of Hickory also has a priority use agreement with the Hickory Public School System, whereas we have priority use of the Hickory Public School athletic facilities over any other non-school groups. So just wanted to start off with just a little explanation on that priority usage. As Mr. Berry said, this is just a follow-up to your January 6th meeting where Tony Wood, who's chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission, Lenny Teague, president, Greater Hickory Tennis Association, were here to present the public-private partnership between the City of Hickory and the Greater Hickory Tennis Association. And at your January 6th meeting, you authorized staff to develop a priority use agreement between the GHTA and the City of Hickory, basically formalizing the partnership between both entities on the tennis complex improvements at Hickory City Park, to also include the requested facility naming rights opportunities that were requested by the Greater Hickory Tennis Association. What I'd like to do is just briefly take you through some of the terms that are contained within the priority use agreement that's in your agenda packet. But basically, the initial term of the agreement is 10 years, beginning March 1st, 2015, and ending on June 30th of 2025. Under the terms of the priority use agreement, City Hickory has terms that they would agree to, as well as the Greater Hickory Tennis Association. Under that, the City of Hickory agrees to design and construct the following improvements at Hickory City Park: a new multi-purpose facility, that being a restroom, picnic shelter, and meeting room facility, parking expansion with curb, gutter, and area lighting, paved surface access road, and walkways. Just want to take you back. This is the proposed complex improvements that were presented to you at your January meeting here. As you can see, just to give, this is 12th Street Drive Northwest. This is current entrance into the park. Right now, the park, we have 20 parking spaces, 20 parking spaces there at Hickory City Park. What this would do would expand that to 75 parking spaces. The existing picnic shelter restroom facility is located right here. Under this agreement, it will be removed and relocated down adjacent to the tennis courts. We've got the existing 5 upper tennis courts and the existing 3 lower tennis courts. So we would bring the picnic shelter, restrooms, meeting room here, and then we've got access roads and then paved walkways leading down both to the upper courts and the lower courts. These are our projected cost estimates, and you can see those, but it's for the new picnic shelter, restroom, meeting room facility. Then, like I said, we would increase the parking from 20 to 75 spaces. It would also have curb and gutter and area lighting. We'd also remove the existing structure. It'd be about 250 linear feet of paved access road, and then about almost 1,500 linear feet of walkway. And then seeding, grassing, restoration, contingency lighting. So that total estimated project cost is $574,200. And based on the Greater Hickory Tennis Association minimum funding commitment of $125,000, and the city's maximum financial commitment to the project would be $449,200. Just continuing on, the other terms in the agreement, that the city would agree to permit GHTA to have priority use of the existing 8 tennis courts for their league and tournament play. It would also allow the GHTA to conduct fundraising programs at Hickory City Park, with those funds going towards this $125,000 funding commitment. The agreement also allows GHTA to sell naming rights opportunities. Also, these naming rights opportunities, funding for that would go toward their minimum $125,000 commitment. But the naming rights to the entire park is established at $200,000. The naming rights to each of the 8 tennis courts is established at $10,000 per court. The naming rights to the picnic shelter, restroom, meeting room facility, those naming rights have been established at $28,000. Any facility naming rights opportunities that the GHTA would obtain would first require a recommendation by the Parks and Recreation Commission, and ultimately formal approval would have to be given by City Council. And then all those facility naming rights would be valid for a 20-year period. Changing over to the Greater Hickory Tennis Association under the terms of the agreement, the Greater Hickory Tennis Association agrees to contribute a minimum of $125,000 toward the tennis complex improvements. That commitment can be paid any time within the first 5 years of the agreement, but ultimately the entire $125,000 commitment, as stipulated in the agreement, must be made by June 30th of 2020. If GHTA exceeds that $125,000 commitment level by June 30th of 2020, for every $2,500 received over and above that minimum level, an additional 1-year priority use will be added to the priority use agreement. Likewise, if GHTA fails to reach that minimum $125,000 funding commitment, for every $2,500 not received, the agreement will be reduced by 1 year for every $2,500 not received. They would also provide full organization, administration, supervision of their tennis program, including making the tennis courts when under their priority use, when they're on the courts, available to all youth and adults. And then they would assist us in keeping and maintaining the courts and the infrastructure in good, safe, clean condition throughout the terms of the agreement. The Greater Hickory Tennis Association Board of Directors has approved the priority use agreement. The priority use agreement was considered by the Parks and Recreation Commission at their March 10th meeting, and they have recommended its approval to City Council. So with that, staff's recommendation is to approval of the priority use agreement formalizing the partnership between the City of Hickory and the Greater Hickory Tennis Association for tennis complex improvements at Hickory City Park, to include the requested facility naming rights opportunities. And with that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions everybody might have.
I don't know if you have the numbers or anything, but on the priority use agreement, do they have any idea like what percentage of the time would they be needing to use the facility? Or
basically, Mr. Seaver, what the agreement stipulates that they have to provide us by March 1st of every year. They have to provide us a schedule as to when they want to use it for league play, and then again in the spring and summer and in the fall. Right now, they're going two or three nights a week during the spring and summer. What the agreement stipulates is that the City of Hickory's tennis program we currently have right now has priority use over their programs. And so the priority use agreement only talks about league and tournament play. They're not allowed to come down and practice. It's just for their league and tournament play. It also allows them use of the picnic shelter, meeting rooms for during tournament play also.
In some cases, they may not have to use all the courts, so would those other courts be open to the public?
Yes, sir. Yeah. They have to provide us, like I said, twice a year calendar as to what days they want. We put those in the book, so any other courts then are open to the general public. And we just request approval of the priority use agreement. Thank you.
Any further questions of Mr. McLeod?
Move approval of the agreement.
Second.
Motion by Meisner, second by Seaver. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Your final departmental report, before I call the presenter up, I'd like to kind of express some kudos or appreciation. Was it last year or the year before, Andrew? You and your wife were in neighborhood college. The year before. So, you know, we always have a great group of our residents come through neighborhood college, and as you all know, when we do their graduation ceremony here in these chambers, we always challenge them to get involved. And Mr. Straw took that challenge and immediately got involved, and is now the chair of the Appearance Commission, Community Appearance Commission, and appreciate his service and great work. And he's actually going to present to you all this evening recommendations from the Commission to make modifications to the guidelines for the 2 grant programs that run through their commissions. So Mr. Straw, if you'd like to present that to City Council, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. And I also want to express gratitude, but Andrew works for Corning and was instrumental in getting Andrea and myself an audience with a group of their executives to talk about the bond program last year, and we greatly appreciated that, being able to show them the great things that were going on in the city, and we couldn't have gotten that access without his help, and we appreciated that very much as well. So now I've set you up.
So thank you for that introduction. So as we used to say in the military, it's always an honor to be a small part of the big picture. So Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Crone and Mr. Berry, I don't need to introduce myself. I don't think I could top that introduction. As you know, the largest part of the annual operating budget for the Community Appearance Commission is $30,000 for appearance improvement grants and $10,000 for landscape improvement grants annually. These monies are awarded by council as matching funds in amounts up to $5,000 for appearance grants and up to $2,500 for landscape grants based on recommendations forwarded to you by the Commission. About 1 year ago, the Commission set out to better define some of the criteria for assessing grant applications in order to provide a basis for consistency from application to application and from year to year to maximize the overall return of the program to the city and the taxpayers, and to align where possible grant awards with other city initiatives. So last fall, I presented to you in this forum the final result, or the initial result of that effort, which was a scoring table that would help the Commission members evaluate grant applications on 6 specific points. You approved that scoring guideline, and our work continued. And I'm happy to say we were able to use the guideline during the assessment of applications this fiscal year. Tonight, I'm presenting a summary of the follow-up work that we've completed, which is comprised of incorporating those 6 points of the scoring table into our operating guidelines, and then updating the guidelines to address some of the other issues raised by you, by staff, and by the members of the Commission. So what I will do now is simply review the key points of our proposed changes to our operating guidelines. First, for eligibility requirements for the appearance program, we're recommending that recipients be ineligible for subsequent grants for the following 2 years. This was in response to a suggestion from Council, and the Commission agrees, the rationale being to broaden the program among more awardees. Second is to add a requirement for recipients to submit receipts for the work done to the city within 30 days. This addresses an administrative need that was not formally covered in the guidelines. Third is to allow the Commission to recommend grants in excess of the normal $5,000 limit when deemed appropriate. This is not a change to the guidelines per se, but rather a clarification of the existing wording for a practice that has been in effect and has been exercised twice in my 2 years on the Commission. Fourth is the incorporation of the 6 elements from the scoring table: visibility, value, impact, longevity, alignment, and viability. Incorporating these elements into the operating guidelines is the next logical step from the work that we did on the model. It will provide potential applicants insight into how the applications are assessed, as well as accomplish the goals of consistency, value, and alignment that I mentioned previously. Fifth, we request extending the maximum time period allowed for the Commission to act upon applications from 60 to 90 days. This will allow the Commission members to actually view the properties before deciding, if desired, and more importantly, provide the flexibility to table a borderline application for a month or two. Other guideline changes for appearance grants would be to disallow landscape improvements, as these are eligible under the landscape program, to remove the 25% matching restriction on awning investment and make it a 50-50 match like all other improvements, and to exclude from eligibility parking lot upgrades and regular maintenance items having no appearance value. Recommended changes to the landscape program are largely similar to those for the appearance program: the 3-year limitation, the 90-day decision period, the exclusion of parking areas and maintenance items. In addition, landscape design and architectural costs would become ineligible for matching funds. The landscape program guidelines would include the 30-day requirement for receipts and incorporate 6 scoring elements similar to those in the appearance program. In our work, we did discuss a range of other suggestions and modifications to these 2 programs. These that I have presented were selected and drafted by a subcommittee of the Commission and unanimously endorsed by the Commission as a whole. Subject to your questions, I respectfully submit these operating guideline changes for your approval.
Any questions?
I just want to say that y'all have done some really good work here to streamline this. I'm very pleased with what y'all done.
Motion to approve?
I make that motion to approve.
Second. Motion by Patton, second by Zagaroli. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Any appointments? Petitions and requests? Matters not on the agenda? General comments. I'd like to start off with one. Mr. Warren Wood is attending his last meeting at this time as Assistant City Manager of the City of Hickory. How many years have you been with the city, Mr. Wood? 22. And you've been Assistant City Manager how many of those years?
Since 99, so
16 years. Aren't you also a sworn police officer?
No.
And you supervise the police department?
They let me think I did.
Well, I've heard them blame you for some things. Well, I think that's a commitment when you have a business school background at Chapel Hill. Is that right? Public administration? At Chapel Hill or a master's?
Undergrad at Chapel Hill Graduate School, that way to say.
There you go. You got smart.
But in addition to that, he became a sworn officer. And I don't know about anybody else, but I have felt safer all these years knowing he's sitting right there. Warren has done a great job for the city of Hickory. And in my term, which is much shorter than his tenure, but I have been here now, I'm in my 14th year, He has saved the people of Hickory a lot of money. He's smart. We're going to miss him. Waxhaw's got a tremendous gain, and we're going to watch. Waxhaw's going to achieve even more than they have in the past.
Born here, raised here.
Yep. Were you born here? Yep. Okay, I knew it was
Married here,
it was
married
about that time.
here,
Your dad moved here from Greensboro, right?
Yeah, they moved to Greensboro from here.
Oh, from here. Okay. Yeah.
They left me behind.
Grammar school, middle school, high school in Hickory, North Carolina.
And still able to get a job. I mean, not because he has not had enough baggage that he couldn't get a job with the city of Athens. I had to leave the state of Virginia to run for office.
Could we ask you to come up to one more time for a budget meeting?
I think we could have...
You have a PowerPoint?
How about this? We get him and Tim Inch here for a reunion.
Well, I expect him to come back and retire here. He has worked out his 30-year notice.
Bat Smith will be my next move.
Wait on that. Let's wait on that. Whoa.
Boy. Well, we do appreciate you. I know I'm speaking for everybody here, and I probably stole everybody's thunder because I jumped out there first. But we appreciate you very much.
We do wish you very well. I've been with you all 22 years, and you've been a tremendous asset to the citizens of Hickory. Thank you.
I think what comes out for, I think all of us, is your level of integrity and your just total commitment to our community and being there to ask questions. And you've always been there for me, and I appreciate it.
And what comes out for me is how tight you are. So dang tight.
That's good for us.
I know she does, but let me tell you what. I mean, this city, I don't know how we're going to replace somebody.
He doesn't even loosen his tie.
I mean, I know these department heads sweating going to see him.
Yeah.
So,
How many consecutive years without a rate increase?
Well, 20.
20. Just 20. Well, you didn't have much clout that first 2 years.
He's a master of making bad news sound like good news.
Or we say he's a master of making bad news sound like worse news.
Well,
He is a class act.
he has put some pretty corny stuff on this wall up here. But thank you, Warren. Appreciate you and your family. And
I'd like to say, can I say something on that?
sure.
Just real quick, I would like to say thank you to Mr. Berry he has given me a tremendous amount of latitude to do a lot of the things that, I've been able to do here. And I really appreciate that. When I worked for Mr. McGee, he did the same thing. So I've worked for two good managers, and now I'm going to give it a shot. So I do appreciate it. I want to say thank you. And thank you to all of y'all. It's been great working with you all and serving the citizens of Hickory. And it's been my pleasure. I really have enjoyed it. So, all right, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, most of you probably haven't been under a rock, so you all know that Hickory High School's varsity girls are the state 3A champions in basketball. That happened Saturday. Also, the Hickory High School Key Club won its 13th Diamond Level Award, which is the highest one in Key Club International. That happened there. It may not be as big as basketball this time of year, but it happened too.
the 13th time.
Yeah.
Well, the girls finished undefeated. I believe that was the only high school team to finish undefeated this year, boys or girls.
Might have been.
I'm pretty sure. I know no other girls team finished undefeated. I think they won 29 games and lost none. In the 12 years that Barbara Helms has been coach, they have won 326 games. That's 27 some a year. They've lost 26, which is 2.2 a year. That is absolutely amazing. And the win they had to win the West, seed number 1 and seed number 2, Hickory won 56 of those teams. I don't believe anywhere a 2 seed has been beaten like that. So, well, and the great thing with all that the reporters, Mr. Bum, one of the reporters asked the winning the game. He said, this gal, after 30 points a game, she signed with Chapel Hill. She went down there to play. She said, Coach Young, the reporter said, Coach Young, you see any way that you will be able to stop her? And Coach Young said, yeah. Held her to 6 points. Anything else? Well, with that, I seek a motion to go into closed session. I'll second. Motion by Meisner, second by Seaver. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Unanimous. Thank you all for coming.
No, he just acquired more Empire style.
So one's not going to be the assistant city manager. So he's wearing a blue suit instead of a black suit. So normally I always wear the black suit.
Spending somebody else's money just don't impress me. Always what happens?